Hello and welcome to Daily Politics. I am Shafiu Suleiman. On the program tonight, we will be interfacing with Hajia Mariam Weiss. She is the special advisor to President Muhammadu Buhari on social investments. She is also a lawyer and a socio-economic rights activist. She joins us on the program to share her thoughts on a variety of national development issues. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me.
Now, before we continue with the conversation, here we'll take a short break. When we return, the program commences. Stay with us. Once again, thank you very much for joining us, Hajia Mariam Weiss, on the platform.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
All right, talking about social investment, this is one very important issue, looking at development question, especially in developing countries like Nigeria. President Muhammadu Buhari, when he assumed office in 2015, clearly indicates his desire, to touch the lives of the poorest of the poor. Came up with several intervention programs, to this effect. And you happen to be the advisor to President Muhammadu Buhari. What do you think, agitated his mind, to come up with such a very ambitious social intervention program?
Well, I think it's a bit evident the numbers of youth that we have that are unemployed. We have a lot of issues with poverty. People who were losing hope, in despair, who couldn't even make ends meet, maybe even one meal a day. And so we were tasked with the responsibility of trying to see how we could create a level playing field for those who don't have access, who don't have connections, who are in need of an intervention in their lives to see how they can take ownership and actually grow their businesses or start something that will really support their families.
Right. Yeah, if I understand, this social intervention program, is all-encompassing, some would say. It touches virtually all the vulnerable groups, from women to children to youths and so on. There are a number of specific programs, like the conditional cash transfer, the school feeding program, and several others. Why were they structured in that sense?
So they're diverse sectors that needed to be impacted upon. And I remember, the vice president saying to me that every time they went out on campaign, the president would say, how are we going to reach all these people? Because there were always huge crowds, and so we were tasked or saddled with the responsibility of trying to see how we can engage those who know nobody, who actually need support. And one of the first things, of course, was developing a social register for households that are poor and vulnerable. And for those households, we needed to make sure that there was, we had a database that that could not be compromised. Okay. And we were very encouraged by the fact that the World Bank was ready to put money into it. And from experience, the World Bank or any other development partner that supports you, it actually, because they monitor what happens, it actually secures the integrity of the data. So we began by engaging the communities directly, asking them to identify the parameters for poverty in their own community. So we didn't really come up with this is the baseline or this is what it is. Every community has its own notion of what poverty means to them, and what poverty is in Katsina Ala may be different from what poverty is in Arondizogu and what. So we needed to know because we needed to assure the communities that we were addressing poverty. So communities would have focus group discussions in groups that they were comfortable with. The females together, the males together, the youth together. They would identify what the parameters were, and they would tell us which households fell into those parameters. And once they did so, we'd hold a plenary and there would be a discussion in the community. Is it true? And there are certain places, for instance, where the parameters drawn up was, oh, the children don't go to school. And I witnessed, somebody saying, no, he's not poor, it's just that he doesn't believe in Western education. He's okay. But some said they cook with firewood. You come up with different things. And there are some who actually are stigmatized. There's a community in the East that they said, oh, because the gentleman stood up and said, because my family, was two of my children involved in armed robbery, and this is why the community doesn't reckon with me, but the parameters they've drawn up actually align with what, the same thing in a Boko Haram community. I mean, in a community in Borno State, another gentleman stood up and said, because my children joined the Boko Haram, the community doesn't like me, so they haven't put me in. We get a consensus and a sign-off from each community, and then each household is visited. And then there are parameters for deciding or ranking them based on the size of the household, the assets that the house has, whether they have water, roofs. There's so many parameters, several fields that we look at, and that actually ranks them. So now we have when the information is collated by the state, it's sent to the federal and it's cleaned up, and that has become a social register. We have over 44 million people on that household now, and it's as objective as you can get. 44 million.
Somewhere I saw about 9.8 vulnerable households in Nigeria. 9.8 million thereabout.
Yes.
Because the figures keep changing.
Because it's growing. We started with 1/3 of the poorest third of the state. Then we grew into the second senatorial district, and then we grew into the third senatorial district. So the figures have been growing, and some states did not start as fast as others. So unless we have a team that we're satisfied with in the ministries of budget of each state, we have somebody who understands gender, who understands poverty, who can do the statistics. There's a poverty ranking, there's a proxy means test formula that's on a device that we enter this information in, and it automatically ranks these families. So once that information is loaded, it's sent to federal and it's cleaned up.
Because a lot of Nigerians will be wondering, when you say poorest of the poor, they begin to wonder who actually falls within this category.
It's the communities that determine. Nobody from federal or even the enumerators is allowed to tamper with the information. It's the communities that decide.
So there are no yardsticks as from what you expect in terms of.
No. You just tell us what is poverty in your own community. And once you tell us, we enter the information. If we go into your community, like in one of the states in the southwest, a chief said, I fall into that, and nobody could argue with him. But when we went to his house, he had an old Peugeot. As you enter it in the asset, it made him richer than the rest. You understand? So that's why we use the proxy means test. And so even though he remains on the social register, we have only been paying people on the lowest sixth decile, so that we only pay those that are the poorest of the poor on that register.
So if I understand, the device itself now recognize, if you like, or authenticate who actually is among the poorest of the poor.
No, we visit each house and we ask them questions. How many people eat from the same pot in this house? So 15, 5, whatever it is, we enter. We enter youth, ages, we enter gender composition, we enter whether there's water, whether there are assets, what assets there are, and that informs the ranking of whether they are poor or not in terms of that community. You understand? And that is the social register. So each state develops its own social register, but put together at national level, it's the national social register. So, a lot of philanthropists or even development partners say, okay, we want to know, maybe for malnutrition, women who are of childbirth age, or who have children between ages 1 to 5, they go to that register. That information can be given to you. Everybody over 65, we want to give them benefits. That information is available.
Okay, interestingly, looking at the numbers now, we're talking about 9.8 million and still growing.
Yeah.
And then President Muhammadu Buhari also has an ambition, of lifting 100 million people out of poverty in 10 years.
Yes.
Here we are with, a significant number of those to be targeted. But there is also a serious concern that there is a gap, While there's this ambitious 100 million out of poverty, we now have 133 million in the poverty bracket. What is the missing link?
Well, part of the problem is our numbers are growing much faster than the economy.
Okay.
If the economy was growing much faster, we would be able to address a lot of what we see. There is no limit. There is no country that can provide, or no state that can provide education for a number that is unlimited. You have to plan, right? The same thing, health. So unless we understand those issues about population being manageable, or being, we know what the cap is so that we can address it. And there's so many other issues. I would say elected officials generally want to address tangible things. They want to be able to point at something and say, this is what I did in my time. So for instance, if money is budgeted for education, focus would be on building a school, right? But that does not translate into full classrooms.
Yeah.
So there are other things that need to be addressed that are not prioritized.
Okay.
And I'm not saying don't do infrastructure. I'm saying infrastructure is critical also because we need the infrastructure. There are too many places where we have a dearth of classrooms. But we also need to address the poverty of the father, because the children will go hawking, the daughters, the boys will go to the farm, or even the girls will go to the farm. If you don't address the poverty of the father, we need to address the training of teachers, the capacity, security issues, the health of the mother. All of those things you can't point at and say, I did in 3 years you can maybe in 3 years you can see improvements.
That's right.
But it doesn't endure. Those issues are not priority for politicians and even for the private sector. I must say, they want to see returns on investment all the time. They want to see immediate returns on investment. Some of these issues in a 4-year term, they're not top of it unless you have funds that you can actually monitor closely and come out with the results of impact.
Right.
They won't be taken beyond.
So if I understand, as a government, you're also worried that most of this investment, into the social programs are not perhaps given the desired result?
No, for me, every person that's supported is one person less. So I will not be one of those who says nothing has been done. I know. The challenge, of course, is that communication has not been as public as it should be. And I'd be the first to admit, when I was supervising those programs, if I was faced with, let's give women 10,000 and there's 200,000 to give, and then a reporter says, I need 200,000 to go to Misau, to go and I will give those women 10,000, 20 women, rather than
looking at that, because you need to get reach maximum number.
Yes, I was right, because nobody in government gets all their releases. It depends on what comes in every month. So you have to prioritize who to impact. But towards the end of the first term, a lot of people were skeptical at, a lot of our elites at federal level or in the state capitals were skeptical. And we realized that we needed to, enhance our communication. And then we started sending, communication is not cheap. That's what I discovered, and,
that's right.
Not many people are willing to do pro bono work.
Well, but part of the investment should also be to enlighten the people, to create awareness.
Yes.
Okay. Now, looking at the interventions, and what is given out, some say it's far cry, when we look at the the situation, the economic situation in the country. For instance, you give someone 10,000 naira monthly. Some families could spend the 10,000 naira just cooking a meal or providing a meal. So how, what happened after that?
So when these programs were being driven under the office of the vice president, we actually also trained who we call community facilitators. In every ward, we had people who had been trained to visit the recipients of cash transfers, and they were the ones on our website, their names, their states, the local government, and their numbers. So any journalist who wanted to reach these beneficiaries could reach them through these facilitators. They visit them every week and train them on financial literacy, what to save, what to spend, what to invest. And we were seeing a lot of results. It's very easy for us to say 5,000 does nothing, but when you see what these women did, you'd feel really humble, because it was amazing. In Jigawa, I saw women putting together money to buy a vehicle, a whole lot of them, because when it's time for a woman to give birth, they would put a woman on a wheelchair and take her to the side of the road and flag down cars. Now they were able to buy a vehicle, and each woman each husband whose wife is due would pay 5,000 naira, 2,000 naira for petrol, 2,000 naira for the driver, and 1,000 naira for maintenance. And they would take. In another place in Kwara, I saw women refurbishing a school, a primary school, and very thankfully, the governor visited that school. They said our children are sitting in these places, rain falls, it doesn't help them, and it's really bad. He came and he refunded these women to say this is actually. So they do this out of the minimum, the meager amount they receive. Put money together and they do different things. They do businesses. They start their businesses. Imagine, one of our programs was the trader money that came under, a lot of, but there are so many people who need 5,000 loan, 10,000 loan, and they don't have access to banks. If you go into the market, you find those selling alehu or efo, spinach, you find those, selling water, really needing this money, but unless they know you or they know me, they don't have access. So this money was targeting people who need that kind of money, little amounts, but who can improve their businesses. I'll never forget one day in Kano. I'm from Kano. I was going to the airport. This chap followed me, Hajia, and I actually thought he was on substance abuse. I was worried. I was running until he said Hajia SIPs, and then I turned. He said, "I just want to thank you." In Hausa, I sell water on a wheelbarrow. Because of this 10,000 naira, I've been able to bring my brother into the business. I've grown my business. Now, anybody that pays 10,000 back within 6 months is now entitled to 20,000. If you pay back 20,000, you're entitled to 50,000. We're trying to build a credit history for these people. So by the time they get to 100,000, they can go to a microfinance bank and say, look, I have the history of paying back as and when due. And this is what was really, where do these people get money? Imagine how much we spent setting up AMCON. And how much we spent doing trader money.
So how do you document all of this? Because there has been concerns in respect to the figures. Nigerians are worried. They want to see the numbers. Who are benefiting from these interventions? How much money is involved? There's I
can give you all that information from 2015 to 2019. It was out in the public. I made statements. I held press conferences. And the Bank of Industry has down to the geolocations of the beneficiaries of trader money. They have all the data. If you take the time to go to the command room, you'll see it. For us, for the other programs, we did Empower, we did school feeding. All of the people we paid got paid through NIBS because we needed their BVN. If you didn't have a BVN, it means it didn't match your account number, or if you didn't match your account number, your name, then you wouldn't be part of the program. We're trying to
but wouldn't that should change the unbankable community who are also vulnerable?
Who are the unbankable community? In every community where we had a primary school, we had women that cooked. And everyone, the only challenge we saw was sometimes the women would give the accounts of their sons or the counselor or somebody, their husband, and the person would get the money and not tell them. So they would now think, and this is not something that is our design. So we threw out a lot of monitors. We got Action Aid to get us monitors, and they were on the field. And then SSS really helped us. So we had quite a number of people locked up, or at least reported to EFCC and ICPC, where they were government officials, to try and see how we could catch up with those people who were trying to defraud even poor people. It was really outrageous in the cases that we discovered, but in many cases we had women who were really doing well, growing their businesses.
Yeah, you talked about appearing on TV, granting interviews and what have you. But in terms Nigerians, a number of Nigerians wanted to see, for instance, a display of such register, indicating the numbers, the people, their addresses, and so on and so forth.
So maybe NASCO should do that, the body that's doing that. But I should remind you that the FOI Act actually precludes or prohibits, without the consent of the person receiving grants from government, prohibits the publication of their names. So this is why, to get around it, people that were skeptical, we put on our website all these community facilitators that were supporting them, and we had documentaries done. Go there, speak to those people. They will take you to the individuals on the register who have been given these grants, and they will be, you can talk to them directly. We don't even know them. And this is what we actually set out to do. This is what happened for many journalists.
So if I understand, you don't just publish the names because you are worried, they could be stigmatized and considered as
It's not just stigmatized, it's that there's a law against it. The FOI Act says don't publish names of people who receive grants without their consent. Now, how do we start going around 44 million individuals saying, do you consent to your name? Some people will tell you, I'm not poor. Stop calling me poor. And we have these documentaries that can actually help, validate what we were saying. But this I am saying, I'm speaking strictly between 2015 and 2019 when I was there. I still have all the information that is required, including their names, their numbers, not of the social register, but beneficiaries, cooks, Empower, Trader Money. We have it all.
Okay, looking at the nature of the programs, there are some that are one-up. Like, for instance, talking about the provision of 774,000 special works, program, which was done some time ago. There has been a lot of controversy with regards to whether it has actually impacted the right people.
So that is not under, that was never under it was under the Ministry
of
for
Labor
and Productivity. It wasn't under us.
Oh, okay. The overall objective, just like you said, is to reduce poverty among the people, is to also, address the issue of hunger. But today, looking at the NBA statistics, we're talking about 133 million in multidimensional poverty. How does this resonate?
Well, I cannot speak for the programs as they are under the Ministry for Humanitarian. I can tell you that in our time, we could verify 13 million individuals who received support directly, indirectly, almost 40 million, because we have families. We have people who are agents, that were part of this thing. We have different aggregators who used to supply fish, who used to supply eggs, who used to supply, to the programs. Families, Empower families that, actually benefited. They put themselves in groups, and so we can talk about indirect beneficiaries. Yes, but I really can't say about what Ministry of Humanitarian has done up to today.
Oh, okay. The fact that you travel around the world and perhaps see how other countries handle this issue of social, interventions. Do you think there are gaps in our own, the way we handle our own, and what needs to be done to rejig it so that it can get the desired impact?
Yeah, one of the issues for me was data. we didn't have data, so we couldn't verify, we couldn't authenticate, but I think Nigeria has done quite well, and the BVN has proved very useful for us. Working through NIBS, I mean, if we're given like 500,000 young people and we share the information with NIBS will come back to us to say, okay, maybe about 413,000 are people who we can engage, and we pay through them. If somebody dies, for instance, and there's no movement on the account, NIBS can recover the money for us. You understand? So it was very meaningful for us to work through agencies. And what has happened is that CBN or BVN, which is under NIBS,
that's right,
chaired by CBN, have been working with NIMSI. Okay. So trying to get our NIN numbers,
that's right,
and it's really growing, because even now, not many poor people apply for passports or get driver's licenses, but it's growing. You must have a NIN number for certain, and this data is critical for us. Right. And beyond that, our social register also has a community profile. Okay. So every community that our enumerators go into, they feed us back with the primary schools, the nearest primary schools within that community, secondary schools, healthcare centers, supermarkets, police stations, the road there, if it's a path, if it's a creek, give you
a holistic approach,
the banks,
in terms
the agents, all of that is there for every community. So if it is Airtel that you can do payments through, you can do that in certain communities, but in other communities it is Glo or MTN.
Depending on the network.
So the banks, the areas that have banks and those that don't have banks. And it has really stimulated a lot of banking in those areas, and I think this is the beginning.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Haja Mariam Uwais, for talking to us on daily politics. Really appreciate your perspectives.
Thank you very much.
Viewers, this is where we wrap it up with Haja Mariam Uwais on the platform tonight, as we take a look at development issues, especially with regards to social investment programs, and of course the National Social Investment Register, which is currently being put together. Thank you very much once again for coming.
Thank you for having me.
We'll take a short break, and when we return, the conversation continues.
Now, as part of efforts to support Africa's goal of strengthening...
Now, looking at the activity chart, as you can see right here, a total volume of 130...
Created a Boko Haram crisis that at that time was restricted to Yobe.
How secure are they? You can see security men with blood.
This is the road leading up to the...
Already, if you look at English squad, you are looking at EPL, you are looking at their names. You are not looking at...
TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, you're watching Daily Politics on Trust TV. Do well to follow us across all our social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, and also watch us live on YouTube. Now to other stories. The APC has announced its zoning arrangement for the 10th National Assembly. The National Working Committee, in a statement released after a meeting held in Abuja on Monday, said that Senator Godswill Akpabio from Akwa Ibom is the preferred choice for Senate President, while Senator Barau Jibril from Kano will serve as the Deputy Senate President. And for the House of Representatives, Honorable Abbas Tajuddin from Kaduna has been selected as the choice for the position of Speaker, with Honorable Ben Kalu from Abia to serve as his deputy. The party, however, called on party members, leaders and Nigerians at large to continue working towards the peace and progress of the country beyond the leadership transition. And also, Action Alliance has withdrawn its protest petition at the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal, challenging the emergence of Tinubu as president-elect. The announcement of the withdrawal was made by the chairman, Adekunle Rufai Omuaje. This comes amidst a leadership crisis within the party, with Omuaje recognized by the court as the chairman. Now take a look.
The chairman of the party, Adekunle Rufai, justified the withdrawal of the party's protest petition to the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal.
To start with, our party, Action Alliance, was neither challenging emergency of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu nor the victory of APC in this instance, but protesting the process adopted by the umpire, INEC, building up to the election. Our growth is with INEC and its approach to issues that concerns our party, spanning over months, build up to the election.
The national chairman of the party, with his national executive, had instructed that this petition should be filed when we filed it. And the basis for the petition was the crass disobedience of various court orders by INEC. This petition was in the main an attempt to bring INEC back to appreciate that no matter how powerful they are, they cannot disobey court orders.
However, INEC recognized AA National Chairman Kenneth Udeze and his counsel were both present at the court, also made their views known.
And this faction that filed a petition went on appeal. They appealed that judgment. It is pending before the Court of Appeal, Abuja Division. Now, INEC, in compliance with that judgment, dealt with the Barrister Kenneth Udeze, late National Chairman of Action Alliance. Now, why the appeal is pending, they filed this petition purportedly under Action Alliance, but the true and authentic leadership of Action Alliance was not aware of it.
I want to really congratulate every members of Action Alliance across Nigeria, because we have gotten to the end. Our opponents, those that have been fighting the leadership of the party, they wanted to be clever by half. At least they have seen what we have filed in court and they know they cannot respond. Reason why they have come today to withdraw their petition.
Adekunle insists that the withdrawal is, among other things, based on his belief that the president-elect, being a proponent of restructuring, will deliver the goods Nigeria needs to grow as a country. Noel Samson, Trust TV News, Abuja.
The Presidential Election Petition Tribunal adjourned matters brought before it challenging the election of the President-elect Bola Tinubu to May 10, 2023. Now, to discuss these issues, we are now joined by Mazi Peter Okorapo. He is the National Secretary, Coalition of APC Support Groups. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
Yes, this National Assembly leadership zoning conundrum in your party appears to be tearing the party apart, some will say, even with the recent development, that is the ratification, if you like, of the earlier position of the party concerning the prepared candidates. First of all, let me get your perspective or your views regarding this zoning by the APC. Was it in the interest of the generality of the APC members, or are there issues around it?
Well, thank you. First of all, it's very imperative that we take cognizance of the fact that intra-party politics is the nucleus of democratic practice. And APC historically, as a party, was a marriage of strange bedfellows. And that being as it is, we inherited myriad of people with different political ideology that came together to constitute the party. And in the turn of the leadership victory of the party, and interest began to clash. It's quite expected. But going forward, the party ought to, by this time, at this stage, been able to outgrow some of these tootling aches that we've been riding along with.
You're talking about 8 years.
Yes, you know. And I have expected that the people at the helm of affairs now, who are the actors and players all this while, should have known better. In the first instance, I would like us to understand there is a little error that the present leadership and stakeholders may have committed, maybe by way of oversight or something like that. I mean, when it comes to issues like this, it has to do with zoning of critical offices for the National Assembly, the 10th Assembly, which is a separate arm of government. It's expected that the NWC cannot unilaterally take decision on such matters. They should have
is it unilateral? Because yes. Last Friday there was a meeting, so to speak, between the president-elect, the national leadership of the party, and I think, some members of the NWC.
No.
So you think it's a unilateral decision?
Yes, I would say unilateral in the sense that procedurally it's a decision left for the NEC, National Executive Council of the party. What NWC need to do is really to make recommendation to NEC on a proposal they have for zoning prior to consideration microzoning to individuals. The whole process is so hasty and fraught with errors.
But is there a time to spend? Because everyone is looking at the need to constitute for the emergence of the leadership of the National Assembly before the deadline.
No, what I'm saying, the time used up in doing things could have been used to do it right. That same time you're using to do it now wrongly.
But the party's national chairman keep talking about wider consultation. He did mention that the party has been carrying everyone along to ensure that everyone is on the same page with it with regards to this zoning arrangement.
No, what I'm talking about is constituted authority, not consultation, private discussion with people here and there. Constituted authority like the National Executive Council of the party, committee of the party, which is the highest decision-making body prior to the National Convention of the party. Issues like this should have been referred after your consultations, your meetings here and there. You refer to the National Executive Council for proper ratification to say that this is the decision of the party.
Is there anything wrong, perhaps, with the candidates put forward by the party, or what is the grievances, entirely?
Well, you see, there is merriment when there is diversity, and when you close decision from the authorities that are empowered to take that decision, fundamental errors leads to wider error. Yes, they could have made a choice, but you can see that the choice they made had no alternative. It's a pinpoint recommendation.
Is it an imposition now?
Yes, you say we want this person. You didn't say let's choose from these persons. Are there persons that are interested? But the issue is not whether you choose this person or you zone to this person. I, as a person, I think the primary issue should be competence, experience, character. We are in an era where Nigerians are calling for credibility and integrity. It should guide our choice of who becomes a principal officer of the 10th Assembly, no matter the office in question.
Looking at the people in question, Senator Godswill Akpabio, happens to be also a ranking member of the Senate. He enjoys some sort of, support also of the senators elect and perhaps existing senators and so on. Senator Barrow Jibril, who happens to come from Kano, is also another ranking senator. He has gone through, all the rudiments, if you like, and understanding the National Assembly, the Senate in particular. Do you have issues around these candidates?
Yes, the issues I have is this. You have other agitators, you have other interested party. You have not harmonized the various agitators for these various offices together. And you have not compared them. You have not thrown them for criticism. You have not looked at their performances in the past. You have not looked at their experience. You have not even looked at the challenging credibility questions around them, which are in the public domain, which I think should guide our choice of who becomes. I am quite aware that there are a lot of resistance to the issues and decisions being taken so far because of this paramount mistake that have been made.
Looking at the resistance, coming within factions, if you like, emerge, or groupings emerge along the lines of those interested in the leadership positions. I've had some talking about the fact that nobody can decide for them who becomes the leader when it comes to the Senate or the the House of Representatives. Because these are internal issues that senators or lawmakers should be allowed to produce their leadership without interference. I've had former governor of Zamfara State talking about that. And then there is also a group emerging, strongly pushing for the Southeast to be considered. And then there are also a number of ranking senators there who felt that one of them should be considered and all of that. How would you justify some of these grievances?
Yes, they're legitimate. They're justifiable because there are issues of equity, there are issues of justice, there is issues of political balancing, and there are issues of experience and competence. Take, for instance, from the Southeast, for instance, and the South-South. We have the person of distinguished Senator Steve Zunaso, who have a humongous parliamentary experience and exposure. He has worked in the Green Chamber, served as elected officer in the Green Chamber, worked in the Red Chamber, served as elected senator in the Red Chamber, served the party as organizing secretary for over 4 years. He has comprehensive experience of parliamentary procedure, party management, and human management. He happened to be domiciled in the Southeast as an individual.
But there are a number of other contenders.
I'm coming. As an individual, his qualities towards that of zoning, no matter where it is considered, by experience, by competence, he towards above them all. And then we are looking at a parliament that will ensure smooth, credible governance of our next administration. We cannot shortchange quality for choice.
But the point I'm trying to make is this, even within the Southeast, a number of people have, emerged, indicating interest or wanting to be Senate President, for instance. We have the former governor Ojuzo Kalu, for instance, is also interested in the Senate. We have the likes of Benjamin Kalu, that is at the reps, so I think the Senate is also interested. So a number of people, that seems not to be harmony, even within the caucus, in the Southeast, with regards to who to present. Didn't you think, that could also be another undoing in this struggle?
Yeah, the reason is because of what I earlier pointed. Had the party recommended a zoning to the National Executive Committee, which houses a wider spectrum of stakeholders from all the zones, they would have been privy to what they got by zoning. They would have laid their arguments at the floor of the highest decision-making body of the party. When that is done, you go home that this is what you got for your zone. You won't see somebody coming for a speakership position and another person coming for a senior position if that had been done. They were laying the horse before the cart. It's a procedural error.
Okay, but some would say,
and I was thinking that people like Adam Socio, having been privileged to interface with the party administration, should have learned and borrowed some wisdom.
But some would say, you know, the president-elect has a lot of influence, if you like, in deciding who becomes, especially, I mean, should also be interested in who becomes Senate President or who becomes Speaker of the House of Representatives. We've seen what happened during the 8th Senate, you know, I mean the 8th National Assembly, where the indecision of President Muhammadu Buhari led to the emergence of a group, you know, outside the prepared choices and what have you. Perhaps that's the reason why the president-elect is also being mindful of who becomes what in terms of getting the leadership of the National Assembly.
Yeah, I have a very paradigm shift from that conception, in the sense that if you are interested in doing the right thing, there is no second choice to doing the right thing. It doesn't matter if you get the right person sitting at the Senate, he will do the right thing at all times. But when you begin to arrogate individuals to suit whatever you have in mind, it is no longer leadership for the nation. If you're talking about leadership for the nation, everybody must have his right to express his democratic rights. The democratic principle is three tiers of government: judiciary, legislature, and executive. The executive electioneering process or engineering has terminated. Are you getting what I'm saying? Right. Now we are now at the era of the legislature. My friend, I want to tell you, there is no senator there that is not capable of being a president. These are distinguished, accomplished Nigerians. It's a warehouse, it's a gathering of highly experienced personalities who have accomplished in various strata of life. And as such, they are competent enough to sit down among themselves and say, this person is better for us and for the country. It's not about individuals, it's about the nation.
Okay.
And that's what leadership is all about.
Yeah. Now that we're having this disagreement, if you like, or groups within, you know, raising concerns and perhaps mobilizing against the choice of the party, for instance, how do you think it will rub up, you know, on the chances of the party itself to even produce this leadership? Because, especially at the House of Representatives, there's a very slim margin, if you like, or I mean, the numbers are there. The opposition, they call themselves the greater majority, can also pull weight and perhaps decide or spring surprises. At the Senate, there could be also such you know, coming together and then mobilizing against all of this. How do you think this will impact on the party's chances going forward?
Yes, it's a major threat. The APC has 59 senators. The opposition put together has 50 senators. And in such circumstances, we are creating room for them to take advantage. Because the major contenders of the Senate election, Senate leadership election, are all APC stalwarts. And these are very influential people. And all it takes for them to decide who wins is just to pull 5 or 7 senators away. Which is very possible. Any of the major contenders can pull 7 senators away. And if that does, with alliance with the opposition, I mean, we lose the control of the Senate as per party.
So how do you think the party and the president-elect can resolve this, you know, if you like, stalemate?
No, the way I see it is that nothing is too late. I am very glad it started on time, so that if there are pending issues, it can be rectified or sorted out along the line before the day of inauguration of the 10th Assembly. And our president is a democratic personnel. And as such, he will want to show and prove that he is such by allowing a populist view to prevail. As long as such a person who is being trumped up is credible, experienced and competent, and probably standing on the tripod of equity and justice and fairness.
Right. Thank you very much, Mazi Peter Okorafor. As a public affairs analyst, he's also the National Secretary of the Coalition of APC support groups. I thank you very much for your perspectives.
Thank you so much.
Well, viewers, this is where we come to the end of Daily Politics tonight. We do hope you will join us tomorrow. We'll be back with another interesting personalities so that together we can work towards nation building. Thank you very much for staying with us. I am Shafiu Suleiman.